when I was 13, they moved me to a children's home, the government. And then at the age of 15, they kicked me out of the children's home because I didn't follow rules, you see. And they said I was leading people into doing bad things. I can't think what. But anyway, they put me in a hostel in Black Heath, London. Because I was still under the government, you see. The authorities look after you until you turn 19, I think it is. So up to 18, they still look after you. So I went to this hostel, and it was Tudor style, a very big house. And I can't remember how many boys were there. I say boys, but we were young men. At 16, we are young men. We're not kids anymore. And it had the most wonderful dining room. I never forget the dining room and the hall when you walk in through the front door. It had panelled walls because it is a Tudor house. And then the man who ran it, he had I think a 3-year-old, maybe 3 or 4-year-old, maybe a 4-year-old son, blonde, I think. And he treated that son with such love. He was the apple of his father's eye, so to speak. And the mother, his wife, she was drop dead gorgeous. The only way I can explain her is to think of someone like, what's her name? Kim Wilde. As soon as you see her, you think of you know what. Well, that's what we did as young boys, and you can imagine what was going on. When you're young like that. And I never forget dinner times. We all sit down, I think maybe 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the evening. And she would walk in with a mini skirt and high heels, a short bob hairstyle, and as I said, she was drop dead gorgeous, and she knew that all us boys sitting there at that table, our minds was on her. Even if we didn't look at her, our minds was on her all the time. Forget the food. And obviously she liked the one in charge, the man, her husband, because he was like a headmaster. His whole behaviour was like a headmaster, very strict, and he had moustache. Well, that's what these girls go for, isn't it? A lot of them. But no doubt now she's probably in her early 70s, and that side of her has gone completely. And I wouldn't recognise her. And in fact, if I found out it was her, and I've got this old lady in front of me, I probably would cry, because I hate to see beauty like that wither on the vine, so to speak. Anyway, I spent a couple of years there, and had a fairly good time, because Black Heath is a wonderful place to be. In fact, I often thought if ever I make a load of money, maybe I'll go and live in Black Heath. And it's right next to the park there. I'm not quite sure if it's called Black Heath Park. Possibly. No, Greenwich Park. That's it, Greenwich Park. Because if you go to the other end of Greenwich Park, down the hill, you've got Greenwich, which is such a wonderful area for shops and cafes. In fact, one of my favourite sweet shops is their old-time sweet shop. It's just as if it was set in the 1930s, this sweet shop, just full of jars of everything you can imagine, and old-fashioned sweets as well, as gobstoppers, which nearly killed me many times as a child. But anyway, getting back to the pagoda, I still feel guilty to this day. They had a wonderful garden out the front, outside the French windows. And I think there was 2 or 3 lots of French windows in the front room there, where we used to sit, us boys, and chat. And I never forget this quite large spider, and it reminded me of a tiger with stripes on. It had yellow and black stripes, and I was a bit thoughtless, like most young men are at that age, 16, and I just thought it looked really dangerous because it was, as I said, it was about the span of its legs and everything. It must have been about that big with the span of its legs. And I went out there with a shoe or maybe a rolled up newspaper. That's what we used to use as a weapon, rolled up newspaper. And it was on its spider web next to the window. And to this day, I feel bad about what I did. I squashed it against the window because I felt it was dangerous. To this day, I don't know if it was, because I've never seen a spider like it. I would imagine it escaped from someone's collection of spiders and probably came from another country and possibly was dangerous. But when I squashed it, it wasn't red blood. It was, as I said, yellow. Yeah, it had yellow blood. But even there, at the age of 70, I often think back, and I'm sure a lot of the boys do, they think back to that time when we used to have, well, breakfast as well, breakfast and dinner. And she always was impeccably dressed in some miniskirt, and what legs. Oh, and those high heels. Can you imagine high heels? And of course, as I said, she knew that she created a stir amongst us boys. Oh, yeah, I still think of her often. The dreams of young men, huh? I say young boys, but young men, the dreams of young men. I think since then I've always been trying to get a girl like that to live with. I've had some really nice girlfriends, but the ones who were as good as her never stayed with me, unfortunately. But she was perfection on two legs. About 20, I think she must have been about 22, 23 years of age. Definitely below the age of 25. Perfection. Now you know what I think about all the time. And just a reminder, if you like my videos, please give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thank you. I forgot to mention, even though her husband doted on that 4-year-old son, he hated us boys. No, he treated us in a very flippant way. Like a headmaster, basically. It's really odd because the children's home that I went to before that, the first house I lived in, and there's quite a lot of kids in that home, in that house, the woman who ran the place had a husband, and her husband was an ex-army man, and he used to be always impeccably dressed with a tie, etc. And if you go into his office, he used to have, like they do in some of these TV things, comedies, you see him with all these lead soldiers. They're made of lead, and they're all in battle formation behind glass, a display cabinet. Anyway, I used to, for some reason, because I don't take orders, I used to get on his nerves. And he had me one day scrubbing the floor with a toothbrush. Yeah, it was a tiled floor in this beautiful Victorian house. And he had me scrubbing it with a toothbrush. And also I had to shout out every time I moved the toothbrush. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I had to shout it out loud, like they do in the army. They try to break people, you see. But he went off to do something, I don't know what it was. And I'd done that for about 5 minutes. And as he wasn't there, I just ran off. I went out, I went somewhere, I don't know where now. I ran off and came back maybe 3 hours later. When I think of it now, I could have phoned up the police and they would have arrested him. But yeah, he sort of liked me and hated me at the same time. But he had a son. And he loved his son. He doted on his son and treated him like a prince, whereas he hated us, all us boys. And there was girls there as well. But I'll never forget, he used to get me to wash his car occasionally. And then you get the hose pipe out and you know what's going to happen, don't you? You know what I'm going to say. Not only was he spraying the car, he would hit me with the hose. And I go to run away or duck. And he'd say, "Stay still, don't move." And so you had to stand there while he's hosing you down. Ooh, he annoyed me, that fellow. I like to get my hands on him now and do something similar, you know, or shove a custard pie in his face or something. Belittle him in some way. But yeah, he enjoyed himself there, hosing me down. And got me to clean the car as well, of course. It was a nice summer's day, I remember that. So I guess it wasn't too bad being hosed down. It just was annoying that he was doing it. But you know, all these things add to your life, doesn't it? It makes you what you are. I wouldn't be me now if it wasn't for all these little things and big things as well. I never got into smoking, drinking, drugs or anything like that. I've always been into girls. And even though I liked sweets and cakes and things, I found that I could give them up to a certain extent. Because my main aim is girls. Unfortunately, they're always running away. The ones who do stay, I don't stay long enough. You know, I run away from them eventually because it gets boring.